I'm Ashton Addison from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews with Peter Kris, co-founder of Gasp, here to talk about DEXs, decentralized trading, cross-chain trading, and something interesting today, gasless trading, which I'm super excited to dive into, and more. Peter, welcome back to the show, and it's great to see you.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Ashton. It's great to be here again.
I've been following Gasp in the alpha launch right now for the DEX, and a lot of things are happening in the inner works. I'm excited to hear what you and your team have been up to since our last video a couple months ago. The market continues to grow, and I think that there's more interest in decentralized trading and cross-chain as more other EVM chains and other blockchains become more popular. Would love to start off with a high level on what you and your team have built at Gasp, then we can dive into all the latest details.
Since the last time, we have already launched our alpha version of the mainnet. So Gasp is a cross-chain DEX that is helping people to trade in between blockchains in a gasless and MEV low environment. So we can guarantee fixed costs. You don't have any problems with paying additional tokens for gas. You can choose a plethora of assets. If you look at the current cross-chain infrastructure, it's currently very hard to create cross-chain liquidity pools, right? The liquidity is very fragmented. It's sitting in its own silos. So for instance, you don't have trading pairs in between Solana and let's say Base on Ethereum. We can do that in a very permissionless manner, right? Even if you look at other, like even perp DEXs or perp exchanges, they're pretty much limited to if you're talking about the spot liquidity, they're pretty much limited to only where they are bridged, and they cannot just list any asset, or the users cannot create any trading pair. On Gasp, you can just come and create any kind of trading pair you want. You can provide liquidity to it and start trading. So this is something that hasn't been done on the market yet, and we are coming first with such a solution. Everything, because it's cross-chain, it needs to have some security or some guarantee that the execution is correct and like no hacks can happen. This is why we decided for an integration with EigenLayer. So EigenLayer is providing us with the security, or let's say economic security, that is finalizing all the transactions that are happening on Gasp and finalizing it further on the Ethereum layer one. We just launched the alpha mainnet. We have been now running this for a few months. We needed to launch this in a, let's say, incremental way because the product is a little bit more complex, and we needed to test and see things in the wild before we unveil further much better features for users, right? So we've been running this for a few months, and now I'm happy in coming weeks we will have much bigger news to come.
That's very exciting, and I appreciate that explanation on the cross-chain. It's one thing to have, I think there's been a big limitation in DEXs where it's just on Ethereum. For the most part, when Uniswap came out and there wasn't all these other chains, you were just trading Ether to one token or stablecoin to one token, and it was sort of limited. Whereas on the centralized exchange, the majority of people are using it, you could do different chains, but the centralized authority is handling all that in the back, and you don't have to worry about that. But of course, you have to give up your keys to them, and there's counterparty risk and all of these things. And what we saw from Bybit hack recently, the users' funds weren't lost, but the exchange was holding a lot of money, and they were hacked. And hopefully that problem can be solved in decentralized exchanges being more secure. So with those advancements in cross-chain, what's the situation in where it's at right now and where the vision is? How do you choose which blockchains to start integrating with, and do you integrate with all of them or just the most popular?
Essentially, I can say that integrate with all of the blockchains. We can very quickly integrate any kind of blockchain because we're using this modular architecture. So Gasp is essentially a roll-up layer 2. It's using kind of like a multi-settlement, so it's simultaneously connected to multiple blockchains, any of our choice. And because of that, we just need to deploy the smart contracts on any chain, and the representations of the tokens will be deposited on Gasp. On top of it, it's protected by escape hedges, which is a function of rollups, meaning that if the rollup would go down for it would stop functioning for whatever reason, users can always withdraw their assets. It has a 100% guarantee through forced exit on the layer one from the origin chain. So if you compare this to, let's say, centralized exchanges, right, you are losing custody of your assets. So if something happens, and for instance, if an exchange decides to halt withdrawals, you're just lost, right? You cannot do anything. But on decentralized exchanges or on solutions like Gas, you can always withdraw your assets because you are the ultimate holder and you have the ultimate control over the custody of those assets. So this is something that has been in the market and in DeFi since the day one. And I believe the growth of DeFi will just grow in imminent future.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And one of the special things about Gasp and what your team has built that I haven't seen anywhere else is gasless transactions, where you don't have to pay the transaction fee. And for any people who've tried Uniswap on Ethereum or any of these other DEXs, depending on the market conditions, I think right now it may be a couple dollars or less to make a swap. But depending on the network conditions, if there's congestion, you could be paying $50, $100 for a transaction fee for some token. And if you're buying a small amount, then it's not even worth it. It makes the platform unusable. So how is it possible to do gasless transactions on DEX, on Gasp, and how do you make that work?
Yeah, people absolutely love our gasless swaps. That's one of the biggest features that people are telling us that they love, because you are just paying a fixed fee on a trade and you have a guarantee that it's just going to be gasless. And it works in a way that we are giving a utility to our token Gasp. So imagine you're holding, let's say, 1,000 Gasp tokens, right? If you're holding it on your wallet and then you lock it, it will give you a guarantee of, let's say, 20 trades per day, which are gasless. So you have no additional costs. The only thing you need to do is hold the token in your wallet and lock it. And the great thing about this, what people love about this, is that you're not spending gas to make transactions on the decentralized exchange. You are only locking it, and that's a very big difference. So on top of it, if the gas token, appreciates in price because it's scarce and it works sort of as a kind of like a measuring tool for the throughput on the blockchain, they can additionally even allocate some capital into gas token.
That's really interesting, because I know there are some features that have come out now where you can make a bridge or make a swap and you can pay with a token instead of Ether as gas. For example, you could pay with a stable coin or something. But to use the Gasp token, but then you don't actually lose the token, you're just staking it and you still have the same amount after the trades. I haven't seen that before. So that's really cool.
Exactly.
So what do you think are, based on the research and how you've developed the DEX, what are some of the main barriers to entry for why more people aren't trading on decentralized exchanges? We touched a few things of the gas cost or cross-chain, or is it just the complexity? What needs to be solved to drive hundreds of millions more into decentralized trading?
I'm just going to repeat what is being repeated in industry, and that's the user experience is still not the best. Right? You need to understand what is a wallet. You need to understand that you need to have some browser extension. You need to understand that you are securing your own assets, right? So you need to save your access to the wallet. So those are things that still need a solution. Or alternatively, the market will find some solution, something like custodial wallets, right? So imagine a MetaMask with your assets, but the keys are not in your computer, but are securely stored with the provider if you choose so, right? So it could be optional. But you have the power of transparency of the blockchain, and you can trade natively on blockchain. So I think that in the coming future, we will see this direction being developed much more. We currently see many solutions in the DeFi that are growing. For instance, Hyperliquid has done a great job in terms of user adoption, because it's really fast. The UX is really great, and it feels like trading on a centralized exchange, right? So I think that more solutions will be coming along this way, and we will see more adoption for all the DEX domain.
That's a great point, and I think the Hyperliquid was really successful they had an airdrop campaign, and they did it really successfully, and a lot of people use the platform still, and even post-launch, people are still touting that we should be using this instead of centralized exchanges, and people got a lot from their airdrop, and then it actually continued to go up as well. So they did something right. Is there any lessons that you can take away from Hyperliquid and move it into Gasp in how can we make something successful, and not just successful and then sort of fades away, successful and then the long term it continues to grow?
If it's possible, focus on the product first before launching the token. This is what Hyperliquid has done very, very right. They have been building the product, I think, for a year and a half, right? So a lot of people didn't know Hyperliquid, but they've been actually building for the past 2 years or something, or even more. So they've done quite some growth on the product first, and then they launched the tokens, right? So this is one thing that, or let's say one lesson that other projects could take if they can take it. For instance, we couldn't take this route because our token has a strong utility within the network. So our network cannot work without the token. We cannot launch the chain without the token, because it's the management tool for the throughput, for gasless swaps. So we had to launch our product with the token, but that's the reason why we have decided to launch in a, let's say, more limited version, so we can scale and polish the product first in the early phase, and then we can unveil more functionality as time will progress.
Yeah, I looked into how the inner workings of the Gasp alpha works, and it's really interesting because I have never seen this before in any other DEX. And you're right that if you want to have gasless swaps, you need to stake the Gasp. You need the token for the platform to work efficiently. You can't do exactly what Hyperliquid did, where they're focusing on the product. I'm sure Gasp is as well, but you need that functionality to actually provide the usages of gasless swaps. So I see that the token is in there, but it's actually not fully released yet. It's not trading on centralized exchanges. It's not even fully tradable. Can you talk about that hybrid approach? And it seems like this is the first platform to ever do this.
We had to do this to make sure that the product is functioning really well, that the connection to EigenLayer is being integrated properly, that the gasless swaps are working properly, right? So not strictly focusing on the token trading aspect, but focusing more on the product. But now with coming days, we will be unveiling the tradability, and people then could buy the token and have much fuller experience on the Gasp platform.
Very exciting. And so with the DEX, of course, you're going to be able to trade between one coin to another and possibly between different chains as well. But then there's also DeFi functionality inside of a DEX as well. So can you talk about what are the other things you can do in terms of financial products and ways to earn besides just trading one token for another?
Yeah, I haven't mentioned that the token has other utilities besides gasless swaps, and that is staking. Technically speaking, Gasp is a multi-settlement optimium with its own data availability. So when you are staking the token, you are securing the data availability of the network and the liveness as well, right? So people can stake and earn additional rewards from the staking rewards, which are being generated from the fees on the platform. Or they can additionally decide to restake the token on the EigenLayer and contribute to the finalization security. So there are various options what you can do with the token, and it all contributes to the security and to the liveness and overall like guarantees of the gas platform. In terms of other features, you can provide liquidity, obviously. And very soon in our upcoming roadmap, we will be unveiling the roadmap. In the future, there will be connection to Bitcoin. There will be connection to Solana. There will be cross-chain lending, which is an emerging feature that will help solvers and algorithmic traders. So imagine you put Ethereum into a collateral on the L1 and you get an asset on the other chain, on the other side. This is something that hasn't worked yet too much because even traditional bridges cannot cover this use case, but Gasp as a platform or as a hub that is sitting in between blockchains, we can absolutely facilitate this. So there are many things to come in the future, and I'm happy to deliver that, every month.
That's really cool. And of course, Solana has had a lot of traction, in part due to the meme coins, which may be dying off now, but the fast and cheap, and I think easy to onboard people in, whether they got in through meme coins or not, has helped Solana grow. I think it's a very important part of DeFi, and so tying into that is smart. But more importantly, Bitcoin, you mentioned there, tying into the Bitcoin ecosystem, which natively Bitcoin hasn't really had DeFi, but of course, being able to stake or build liquidity pools with Bitcoin, I think is important to tie into the rest of the ecosystem. What are your thoughts on DeFi on Bitcoin, and do you think institutions and the major players that have held the ETFs and big money might be interested in Bitcoin having this increased functionality and driving more capital into DeFi?
Absolutely. This is the topic within the Bitcoin circles for quite some time, and Bitcoin L2s are here to stay. And most importantly, because Bitcoin wants to have more expressiveness, or Bitcoin wants to have more functionality, and achieving that through layer twos is a way to go. Even though there are still some requirements, so we need to do certain soft forking on Bitcoin before like the full capabilities is unveiled. But I believe it will happen, and we will see much more functionality on Bitcoin. So that's great news for us because, again, we are a layer 2 architecture. So we will become an L2 on Bitcoin at the same time. So we can enable, for instance, pairs in between Bitcoin and Ethereum, and people can trade it very, very seamlessly. For now, we are enabling Lombard BTC or Lombard Bitcoin. That is one of our singularity pools. So it's one of the initialization pools of Gasp that we are currently bootstrapping.
That's very cool. And personally, I've been looking for solutions that if you had Ethereum and your friend wants to accept Bitcoin, there really aren't very many solutions where you can do that in a DEX. You have to send it to an exchange and then trade it and then withdraw again. And I think we need something like that. And I feel like that would be very popular.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at the cross-chain space, there is still not that many solutions because it's, first of all, very complicated and costly to build properly and securely. And the user experience is not that great. So it's a space that can evolve, and this is where Gasp comes, and we are evolving this whole vertical.
It's very cool. Looking forward to that evolution. And sort of back to where the present part of the alpha of Gasp is right now. I saw that there's over 1 million locked in to the platform, but of course there's a lot more to go because this is just the alpha. So usually getting involved early has some incentives or rewards. You mentioned that the Gasp token, you can get it, and then there's rewards as well for the staking or for the liquidity pools. Are there other incentives for the early adopters and innovators that are testing out the platform?
There will be future rewards for early testers. We are paying attention. We have, for instance, a dashboard for every user. So in the dashboard, there are various activities being tracked, meaning the volume traded, liquidity pools created, days active, number of deposits. So all those metrics we are very carefully observing, and in the future, the best users and the most loyal ones will be rewarded.
That's great. And it's been a few months now since the alpha launch. Is there a timeline for the future on moving to the full version? And how for the early adopters or people that haven't gotten involved yet, how if they did e-daddle around and then the main version comes out, is there any tentative timeline on the next part?
I cannot say for 100% when, but it will happen this year. And it depends on the whole stability and polishing of the platform and the features that we consider a good full mainnet version. So right now we're still staying in the alpha phase. Maybe we will move a little bit to more production ready version, but definitely it will happen this year.
Very exciting. And I saw something about a grand vision of even going beyond crypto. Of course, having cross-chain is important, but also the institutions are interested in tokenization of the stock market and real-world assets, and the quadrillion-dollar derivatives of other things that aren't in crypto right now. Is that something that may be incorporated into Gasp in the long-term vision, or is there a long-term vision outside of crypto?
Well, the real-world assets are already on Gasp today. If you look at the pairs, there is pretty large pair of euro versus the dollar, and stablecoins are part of the real-world assets. So any token that is sitting on any blockchain can be traded on Gasp. So that includes all real-world assets, being even tokenized stocks, tokenized real estate, tokenized bonds, or anything you can imagine. And actually, I think that the future of DeFi is in that direction, because now with the proliferation of stablecoins, I just read that one of the biggest banks in the US will launch their own stablecoin if the regulation will be right. It's a hot topic in the DC, in Washington. And even if you look at it through perspective of liquidity or liquidity provision, it's a great thing to be providing liquidity into euro versus the dollar, because the volatility of the rate is not so high. So you don't need to have impermanent loss that much, but the volumes are there because the demand is high. So I think that this whole category will even grow, and Gasp is more than well positioned to be sitting right in the center of it.
That's really cool to hear, especially because I think one of the barriers to entry is higher risk for some people. Stablecoins are essential and important for DeFi, and sometimes people get in the trenches and they're looking at micro cap projects and trying to see high APYs, but then there's impermanent loss or other risks that they may not understand. But having stable coins and tokenization of fiat currencies, global currencies, I think is important. So I'm looking forward to that. And what you mentioned there about real estate, I did just see news that Robinhood mentioned, they're planning to potentially have real estate on the platform. I feel like that will be some kind of RWA tokenization play with crypto involved, probably. So it would be cool to see Gasp beat out Robinhood in bringing that innovation into the DEX and tradability. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to that as well. I mean, I love Robinhood. I'm personally the user. So I like what they're doing, and they're actually onboarding a lot of new people into the space. So they are of big help to the industry. And I believe we can be sitting there in parallel and onboarding other users to Gas platform.
That's amazing. So if you want to get started in testing out the Gasless transactions and staking and the other functions, what is the best way to take the first step?
Ideally, you have a MetaMask wallet or Rabby, and you have it connected on Ethereum layer 1 or on Base. And then you have some stable coins. So you buy some stable coins, or let's say on Uniswap or some Aerodrome, and then you make a deposit to Gasp. And that's the point where you can start trading. You can buy Gasp, you can stake it, you can trade other coins, you can restake to EigenLayer, you can explore other pools, you can create other pools. So there's a lot of stuff to do. And the best way to do it is through Base. But we have as well, currently we have a connection to Arbitrum, we have a connection to Ethereum layer 1, and very soon we will be integrating other chains that we will announce very soon on our Twitter and social media.
Very cool. Looking forward to it. I'll leave a link to those social links you mentioned and the platform as well in the show notes below. I'm looking forward to the next versions. I see that there's countdowns to impending updates, and I've been testing out the alpha a little bit as well and gathering some points for this next reward incentive. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it grows, and I'm wishing you and the team all the best on this. And thank you for making a big impact, especially when we move cross-chain. This is a solution that the industry needs, and people are always looking for some way to move securely between different chains and swap back and forth as blockchains become more intermingled. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for the time today, Peter. All the best with Gasp and everything moving forward, and let's follow up in the near future.
Thank you very much, Ashton. It was great to be here again, and I'm happy to talk again. If someone needs, they should reach out to us either on our Discord or on our Twitter. I'm trying to respond to everyone over time, so do not hesitate to contact me or anyone from the team, and we are happy to show you everything around Gasp.
Great. Thank you so much.